Last week in Michigan politics, concerns over federal immigration tactics continue to rise. What one lawmaker is proposing here in Michigan when it comes to law enforcement wearing face coverings. Plus, a name long floated as a top contender in one of next year's key statewide races now says he will not run for the post. Why he says that is and how that could impact the state of the race. And a county motto that had become a symbol for intense local controversy is now no more. What people in Ottawa County were saying on either side of the debate. I'm Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on your side rundown. The federal government is authorizing a disaster declaration for 13 northern Michigan counties after ice storms in March. President Donald Trump approved the request from Governor Gretchen Whitmer to help communities impacted by the historic ice storm. The storm downed trees and wires, blocking hundreds of miles of roads. The declaration unlocks hundreds of millions of dollars to help communities recover and rebuild as quickly as possible. The Palisades nuclear power plant is one big step closer to being the first repowered nuclear power plant in the United States. U.S. Representative Bill Huizenga posted on X Thursday that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission gave approval for the plant to operate. The approval allows Palisades to load fuel, but there are still several licensing actions needed before the plant can actually restart, which Holtec has been working towards since buying the plant in 2023. The plan is to restart operations later this year. Palisades first closed in the spring of 2022. FEMA will be holding a public briefing on August 5th to talk about emergency public health and safety plans. That will be at the Van Buren Intermediate School District Conference Center in Lawrence. Congressman Huizenga also now saying on social media he's not running for U.S. Senate. It's the seat now held by Democrat Gary Peters, who is not seeking re-election. Huizenga, a Republican, currently serves as the U.S. representative for our state's 4th congressional district, which includes areas of southwest Michigan like Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, Benton Harbor, and St. Joe, and Holland. His decision will likely clear the GOP primary field for former Representative Mike Rogers, whom President Trump endorsed Thursday night. On the Democratic side, State Senator Mallory McMorrow, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, and former State House Speaker Joe Tate are among the competitors for that nomination. With all the impacts of federal cuts this year, a Muskegon man says they've threatened his work not once, but twice. He spoke with 13 on your side about what he does and why he's concerned about what could be coming.
I'm just a nerd for learning.
David Ruck makes a living through his independent production company with a big emphasis on the environment. From government to local PBS, learning and teaching the public is something he loves.
I love every day that I get to work with a coral scientist or a marine biologist or someone who's trying to better understand the Great Lakes.
But now, when it comes to his work with public broadcast, he feels the future of his work is in danger.
I typically work with Detroit Public Television. Those are regional stations that are going to take the big hit. You know, something like Detroit Public Television or WGVU with the pittance of a budget that they have.
Congress last week voting to take back roughly $9 billion in federal spending, including about $1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting that plays a big role in funding public media like NPR and PBS.
We clawed back $9 billion in taxpayer funds and wasteful spending, fraud, waste, and abuse.
With all this talk of waste, fraud, and abuse, I've never seen it.
But it isn't the first time, he says, recent events have impacted his work. He says in the past he's also been contracted within the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA.
The kinds of stuff that I typically work on is either highlighting a project that took a place that was, suffered from environmental degradation from our industrial past.
Earlier this year, NOAA finding itself engulfed in a wave of efforts to drastically reduce the size of the federal government, putting those like hundreds of employees and meteorologists at the National Weather Service out of work, and throwing key funding, staffing, and work into question across the agency.
While he usually gets calls early in the year for projects, he says this time, aside from small follow-ups, the phone hasn't rung.
Everybody's either in a holding pattern, waiting to see what's going to happen, and therefore they're not spending any.
For him, he signaled he's going to be able to carry on.
I do this work because I love it. The paycheck makes it sustainable.
But for the services and their importance, he fears.
This work that plays a role in so many things that we take for granted, especially like here in the Great Lakes. We've got just myriad issues now and on the horizon with these freshwater resources that we have.
Michigan State University Extension could soon lose funding for SNAP Ed, the program that helps families make the most of their food assistance benefits. When that money runs out on October 1st, up to 120 people could lose their jobs, we're told. Every county in Michigan is expected to be affected by those cuts. The employee union's Extension United Local 1855 is pushing back on the way MSU is handling the cuts. They argue the school did not initially tell the employees directly they could be losing their jobs.
We first got a hint of these layoffs through a published op-ed, not through internal communication. Only after union pressure did the university commit to sharing a timeline.
The union and school are currently negotiating their first contract, meaning there are currently no protections in place. A woman says she was arrested by Grand Rapids police this week while protesting the actions of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE. Coming up, what she says happened and how the local police chief is responding to the incident. We heard this week from a woman arrested by Grand Rapids police while protesting the actions of ICE. She described what happened to her and joined others in urging county leaders to create a sanctuary for immigrants in West Michigan. Here's 13 on your side's Lance Wilhelm.
I pulled up upon about 10 unidentified men this week detaining the Hispanic men.
Sharon Smith spoke before a Kent County Board Commission meeting about her Tuesday arrest by Grand Rapids police.
We know that Hispanic people are being targeted. It's been admitted that it was racial profiling, and this is just an evil, racist system.
She says she followed ICE officers to a federal office and blocked the officers from leaving using her car, an act of protest to protect those she sees as being targeted by ICE.
Where did those guys go?
GRPD Police Chief Eric Winstrom told us yesterday that the arrest was purely because Smith was blocking a public alleyway and refused to move, saying it had nothing to do with her protest.
Who are we making it a great place to be?
But Smith isn't the only one concerned for immigrant residents, as the Trump administration has expanded detention efforts.
Why the heck are you turning a blind eye to what ICE is doing in this community?
Lifelong Kent County resident Charlie Snydeker says the local government isn't doing enough to protect immigrants.
Consider the possibility of making Kent County a sanctuary county. It's not unheard of.
Some in Kent County are specifically concerned about what local law enforcement is or is not doing to help federal agents carry out deportations.
We are the biggest department in the county.
We sat down with Kent County Sheriff Michelle LaJoy Young to gain some clarity on the issue. She says that when someone is arrested for a criminal offense, so that doesn't include a civil offense like a traffic violation, the law requires that the person is identified and run through federal databases, including one with people of interest to ICE.
And in that context, we would contact ICE and say, okay, we have this person, what are your intentions? And we'll work the rest of the way through our process.
LaJoy Young says she understands the fear from the community during this tense time, but adds she is required to fulfill her duties under the law.
I can't make you a promise that I can't fulfill. What I can tell you is we only collect information that we absolutely have to do the work that we're doing.
GRPD Chief Winstrom had reiterated his department's stance on immigration enforcement, saying it's simply not in the immigration business. And at the state capitol, conversations continue over federal officers wearing masks while carrying out immigration enforcement. Now, a new bill is expected to be introduced in Lansing to restrict when law enforcement can cover their faces. The bill is set to provide some exceptions, like to stop transmission of something like COVID-19. But while it would apply to all levels of law enforcement, we're told it's geared toward concerns from the federal level.
Justice needs no masks.
That was the message some Democratic lawmakers in Lansing were sending Thursday morning amid a national setting they feel led them to action.
To be honest, this bill today is something a year ago would never have thought I would need to introduce.
State Representative Betsy Kafia unveiling a bill to clamp down on the use of face coverings amongst law enforcement operating in the state, as reports of federal immigration officials covering their faces have spread.
The details specifically that are in the bill have to do with law enforcement at all levels not wearing masks when they're interacting with the public and actually being required to have some kind of insignia, ID.
It's also raised the risk they fear of imposters.
A man in North Carolina is accused of impersonating an ICE officer and threatening to deport a woman if she would not have sex with him. The federal government is giving these so-called men the opportunity to abuse and violate women as a result of allowing their own agents to hide behind masks and normalize this behavior.
Michigan among a handful of states leading the way when it comes to challenging the practice. Last week, Democratic Attorney General Dana Nessel leading states like New York in urging Congress to pass its own legislation. Both U.S. senators from Michigan joining others in signing on to a federal bill similar to what Kafia and her allies are proposing.
Because of this legislation and because of fighters in Washington, we will not be silent. It's really just that simple, and we cannot be silent because silence means what? Complicit.
Members of President Donald Trump's administration have argued the practice shields law enforcement from harassment, intimidation, and doxing of personal information while doing their jobs. Given that Michigan's bill would apply even to federal officers operating in the state, its passage could mean a showdown between state law and the power of the federal government.
My hope would be that it would be adopted federally. That would be the place that would have the greatest impact. But either way, states need to take a stand.
There's a new federal prosecutor in town for the Western District of Michigan. Attorney General Pam Bondi appointed Timothy Verhey to the position this week. Verhey joined the U.S. Attorney's Office in 1990. During his 35 years as a federal prosecutor, he has prosecuted all types of crimes, including domestic terrorism, international fraud, and violent crimes, we're told. Verhey replaces Mark Totten, who stepped down in January and is now running as a Democrat for Michigan Attorney General. Tens of millions of dollars are on the way to local housing efforts. Where it's coming from and where exactly it's going. That's next. A long-term improvement project is beginning at the Muskegon Harbor. The nearly $6 million project will include repairing and reinforcing the walls protecting the harbor, as well as rebuilding the walkway along the Muskegon River Channel to improve safety and stability. It's expected to be completed in spring of 2027. The work is being led by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Detroit District, and funding for the project comes from the 2022 Disaster Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. A baby formula manufacturer in Zeeland is one step closer to expanding, given a rezoning effort. Last week, Mead Johnson's request to rezone the land next to the facility on Main Street from residential to industrial was approved by the City Council. In a statement, Mead Johnson thanked the council members for approving the application, saying it will allow them to make essential upgrades and support their 500 employees. The next step is a site plan review. City documents say it will address public concerns, including traffic. Some affordable housing communities in West Michigan are receiving major funds for renovations. Michigan State Housing Development Authority Board has approved almost $79 million for improvements at 3 different developments. They include Countryside Townhouses in Kentwood, 21 Weston in Grand Rapids, and HOM Flats in Wyoming. Between the 3 complexes, nearly 450 residences will be renovated. Still no agreement earlier this week on how to redevelop Gaslight Village in East Grand Rapids. This week, city commissioners held a contentious meeting to review a plan for the area. The project would bring about 55,000 square feet of new commercial space, 166 new rental units, and 14 townhomes to the area. Multiple commissioners at this week's meeting bringing up concerns over the proposed redevelopment, including walkability and traffic. Many community members also voiced their concerns about the project, claiming it is too big for the community.
And you're disregarding the wishes of the bulk of the community that comes in here and says, we don't approve this concept plan, we don't want this concept plan, it's too massive, too big. Now, one of you is saying, scale this project back. Scale it back. And another thing I think is inappropriate is for city staff to be presenting the PROD and the issues for the developer here today, and the developer is not here. I think that's inappropriate. I think it shows a conflict of interest, and it shows a bias on behalf of the city, pro-developer and pro this development.
The city commissioners did not vote on the concept plan for redevelopment that night. Discussions are expected to continue at the next city commission meeting on August 4th. More than 2 years ago, when the conservative group Ottawa Impact gained control of the local county commission, they made a number of changes, including to the county motto. After the break, what people on either side had to say this week as the new Ottawa County leadership declared that motto no more. A new battery storage facility could be coming to Ottawa County. It's proposed for 14 acres on 88th Avenue in Blendon Township. The company says the system is designed to increase grid reliability and help supply power when demand is high. Called KCE Michigan, the township says it will create between 30 and 50 jobs during construction. It's expected to contribute $500,000 to Zeeland Public Schools and others. A public information hearing happens July 29th from 6 to 8 at night. It's taking place at the Blendon Township Fire Station on 96th Avenue. The Ottawa County Board of Commissioners voted to eliminate its controversial motto, "Where Freedom Rings," following 2 years of debate over what it represents and whether it speaks for the whole community. 13 on Your Side's Kiara Patterson went to the meeting and said people were split. Some saw the motto as a symbol of freedom. Others called it politically divisive.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The motto, "Where Freedom Rings," rang out for the last time Tuesday night. The Ottawa County Board of Commissioners voted 7-4 to eliminate it, with no new motto put in its place. Before 2023, the county's motto was "Where You Belong."
Imagine you just so happen to get arrested and you end up in the county jail. "Where Freedom Rings" doesn't necessarily fit the narrative.
Critics say the motto became a political symbol by the previous board's Ottawa Impact majority, which eliminated the DEI office and replaced top officials.
The old motto was kind of based in the DEI ideology, so replacing it really was just a way to continue to promote freedom, which is what the government should do for citizens.
Supporters of the motto say it stood for American values.
I'm here to strongly urge you to keep our county's motto, "Where Freedom Rings." This motto reflects the American principles that built Ottawa County: freedom of speech, faith, personal responsibility, and a shared cultural foundation rooted in Christian and Western values.
But commissioners who voted to remove it say the motto no longer represents everyone, and that government branding should be neutral, not partisan.
Our decisions and administration should not be premised on what the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, for instance, thinks. In short, this motto is divisive, regardless of the truth and support of the principles of personal freedom. For far too many people in Ottawa County and elsewhere, this motto has come to symbolize disunity and rejection.
And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13onyourside.com. We'll see you next week.